Undercover Grandpa is a 2017 Canadian action comedy spy movie that has received mixed reviews. There are pros and cons to this movie. Are there enough pros to give it a watch? Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
From our podcast, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, and our website, spymovienavigator.com, the premier go-to resources for spy movie fans. So, are there enough pros to give Undercover Grandpa a watch? Dan thinks so. Tom, not so much.
Yeah. I mean, I'm never gonna get that time back. And I've watched this movie a couple times. I just don't get what you like about this one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it knew what it wanted to be. I mean, did it want to be a spy movie, a rom-com, an old guys are cool movie? I mean, to me, this movie should have just been kept undercover, not just Grandpa.
Oh, a little kept undercover joke there. I get it. Well, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, there's a bunch of movies really before this movie that have the word undercover in the titles. Undercover Blues, 1993. Undercover Angel, 1999. Undercover Brother, 2002 movie, which we did decode.
Which we did like.
Yeah. Undercover, 2015 movie. And Undercover Wife, a 2016 TV movie. And Undercover, two separate words, a 1987 movie. So there you go. And now we get in 2017, Undercover Grandpa. All right. By the way, this movie is available on Prime as of this recording. All right. We're going to give you a trivia question, and we'll answer that trivia question at the end of this episode.
Yeah, now this trivia question is a little different because it's going to be pertaining to one of the actors in this movie,
Aha.
Undercover Grandpa, and it's not about James Bond. I'll give you that hint. So the question here is, which Undercover Grandpa older actor, and I'm putting older, and there's a category of actors in this movie of the older folks versus the younger folks. So in the older folks, played a recurring role in the animated TV spy series Archer. So who was this actor and what role was played or voiced? Because Archer is an animated show. My guess is if you're a big fan of Archer, you're going to know this. If you're not a big fan of Archer, this one might be a struggle for you. But we'll give you the answer at the end of this episode.
All right, the storyline goes like this. Undercover Grandpa follows the story of Jake Bouchard, a shy 17-year-old who finally gets a date with Angie Wagner, the girl of his dreams. But things take a dramatic turn when Angie is kidnapped by a Russian general. Now, Jake's grandfather, Lou, played by James Caan, who I love. Now, Jake initially believes that his grandfather is just a senile old man with fanciful stories, and he lives in a retirement home, kind of. And he reveals, albeit suspiciously to those listening, that he, the grandpa, is actually a retired intelligence officer. Are we going to believe that?
Yeah, this is one of those kind of, all right, how do you pull that off?
Unable to get help from the authorities, Grandpa Lou decides to take matters into his own hands. He enlists the help of his old special ops unit, and old is the operative word here, known as the Devil's Scum, to rescue Angie. The band is back again.
All right, so when you talk about putting the band back together, right, let's talk about who's in this, because I said I didn't know if they wanted this to be just be an old guys are cool movie. So it has in it Louis Gossett Jr., who's 84, and he plays this character called Mother.
Yeah.
Lawrence Dane is 83, and he plays a character called Wolf. Paul Sorvino is 81, and he plays Giovanni. James Caan is 80, and he plays Grandpa Lou. Jessica Walter is 79 when they did this, and she plays Maddie Harcourt. And Kenneth Welsh was 78, playing Harry Nederlander. So that is a really good old people cast, if you will. And,
Yeah.
Well, I'm calling them old people comparatively because then they're the three what are supposed to be teenagers. Dylan Everett plays Jake Bouchard, who's like the lead of the story.
Yeah.
And Greta Onieogou plays Angie Wagner, who is sometimes called Jake's girlfriend in this movie.
Yeah.
And then you've got the high school friend of Jake, Jesse Bostwick, playing Wendell. And he's the high-tech geek of the group. So, I mean, putting this band back together, that first group that I mentioned, really solid core of actors in that. And then now Dylan and Greta and Jesse, they're not of the same quality as the other list, but they're younger. So we'll give them a little bit of a pass here.
Yeah. I mean, the film combines action and comedy as this old team, as we've pointed out many times already, along with Jake and his tech-savvy friend Wendell, embark on a mission filled with humorous and absurd situations.
Humorous? Oh, wait, this is a movie about some teens, and one of the teens is a regular guy, and the other guy's a nerd. And the regular guy is in lust with a classmate, but hasn't told her yet. Please, can this get a little bit more formula? I mean, how many times do we have to get this unimaginative storyline in teen movies? Yeah, they tried to put this old guy thing and the spy stuff in it, but come on. We've
Come
seen
on.
this before.
You got to
And
give
you
it
say,
a
and you say
got to give it a break here.
you say it's humorous. There's not a lot of humorous in here.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. I think there's enough. All right. I mean, in the end, they do manage to do pretty well against these kidnappers with many twists along the way. And of course, an ending that, well, we will wait for the pros and cons to talk about the ending and other stuff. All right. When it starts with the kitchen scene and a boy heading to high school on a skateboard, you just think it's going to be a teen movie,
Yeah, it
and it
never
actually
stops being just a teen movie, Dan.
no,
I mean,
it is
all
kind of a teen movie, but then you got
yeah,
the old guys in there, so it's
yeah,
it's for old folks too.
yeah. But the old stuff there, I think, is just taken from the teens' perspective.
All right,
It just didn't work for me.
all right. So he's going to school on a skateboard. He's not Marty McFly, but what the heck, it's still there. He goes off to high school. The school shot establishes that this young man, Jake Bouchard, is very interested in a girl in his class. And he has a talent for drawing. So he's doing this little sketch during the class, of course, and you got this typical teachers yelling at him and that kind of thing. But this is important because
Yawn,
this is the
yawn.
relationship developing part in front of us that, okay, they're going to set the bar for us now. We know, okay, he's interested in this girl. She's going to have something major to do with the story. And of course she does. Yeah, right.
Yeah, now the drawing itself isn't fully important. It's a little bit because she realizes it's her that he's drawing. But really, this is all about Jake's lust for Angie, right?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, any high school boy would be appropriately lustful towards Angie, right? I mean, she's an attractive young lady. Now,
Yeah, she is.
she was 26 when they did this, but that's a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
issue.
She looks older. She does look
Yeah.
older. Yeah.
Okay. Now, another line in this classroom said by Jake after getting reprimanded by his teacher is, "Methinks old people should be seen and not heard."
Mhm.
Now, we want to point this line out because it's the fundamental attitude that Jake has towards old people. They should be seen and not heard. And
Including
that includes
including his
Grandpa
grandpa.
Lou. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's kind of tired of Grandpa Lou and his stories. And this is really, really important to the story because Jake, like most of these things, Jake's attitude has to change as the story goes along. I mean, he's kind of a nerdy kid. He's not Wendell, but
Yeah,
he's
not
now
when.
developing this relationship with this girl, and so that's kind of cool. I mean, okay, he finally is going to get a date with her.
Yeah, he's got a date with Angie Wagner. Yeah, he's not really nerdy. He's more shy. He's really a shy kid. All
Yeah,
right. So he gets this date. Hey, we're all relieved, aren't we? Weren't you relieved there, Tom? You were worried they wouldn't get that date, right?
yeah,
And
because you couldn't see it coming from 12 miles away.
and then he finds out his grandpa's coming over. Oh no, what's going to
Shocking,
happen there?
positively shocking. Who couldn't see that coming?
Might that interfere with the date? Oh, I don't know. We don't want to give it all away here. Too important. Okay, now we get the initial picture. Grandpa was in the armed services, and they think maybe he's a little crazy since he tells fantastical stories. That's it. At the table, he's telling all kinds of these stories. The bit with the Kentucky Fried Chicken is amusing, especially with James Caan telling the story. Jake says he lives in a fantasy world. All right,
Yeah, but
we're set up.
this story is one of those things I hate in movies. Now, it might have been a setup to try to show that Grandpa is a little lost his marbles, but
Yeah.
if they're going to make a historical reference, you've got to make it plausible and correct. And so now Colonel Sanders and Grandpa wouldn't have been in the same place when the story that Grandpa tells supposedly happens. Because
Oh
he
my
talks about being in the military during the second occupation of Cuba with Colonel Sanders. Now, the second occupation of Cuba was from 1906 to 1909. Now,
All right.
what they did get right is, I mean, Colonel Harlan David Sanders was born in 1890, So he was in part involved in that occupation, but he wasn't
See,
a
there you
cook.
go.
But he wasn't a cook in the military. He was a wagoneer, kind of like a truck driver in Cuba from 1906 to 1907. So
Yeah.
even Grandpa saying Sanders shoveled mule poop, that was possible given that he was a wagoneer. And
Yeah.
Sanders was discharged in 1907. Okay, so now the character Grandpa, played by James Caan, supposedly was in this thing with Colonel Sanders in 1906 or 1907. James Caan wasn't born till 1940, right? So that was only 31 years after the second occupation.
Yeah, there's a little inaccuracies
Yeah,
there in
so
the historical value of the Kentucky Fried Chicken story.
yeah. Now
Ah, big
what
deal.
they use this for though is, I mean, first, Grandpa says that Colonel Sanders was the worst cook in the world, and that he was the one who really created the recipe. But then
Yeah,
Sanders
that's
had to
funny.
change it, so he didn't pay any have to pay any
I thought that
royalties.
was amusing.
Well, yeah, but okay, so Sanders' recipe for the chicken, it wasn't just the spices. It's also he was one of the first people to use a pressure cooker to cook chicken.
Yeah, you're worrying too much about the
And
Colonel Sanders story.
yeah, well, but there's actually two parts to this story. The first part of it about Colonel Sanders being involved in the second occupation of Cuba was right.
Okay.
Right. So is this the way he tries to say, I've got some stuff that's real, and then I'm pretending to be,
Yeah.
insane or whatever. So I'm going to throw this other stuff. I'm not exactly sure. I just thought if you're going to put these references in, make them accurate.
Yeah.
They've got them kind of accurate, and then they go off the rails.
Yeah, but you
Now,
don't know. We don't know if he's crazy or not. At this point, we think he's kind of crazy, actually. So this actually fits right in with that.
well,
Boy, I
okay.
mean,
Now,
you don't want to talk about how many herbs are in there?
no, because he even got that wrong. Now, all that said, it was nice to see a
Ah,
KFC reference because we saw one in Goldfinger, right?
yes,
When
we
Leiter
did.
and Simmons were having lunch waiting to track James Bond.
Yeah,
So
which was
again,
filmed in Miami, by the
in
way.
Miami,
That
yeah.
scene. Yes. We ate
So
lunch at that KFC.
yeah, so
All right.
this is just one of these things that
All right.
I'm
All
not
right.
sure
All
what they
right.
were
I think that's
trying to do
enough
with it,
about
and I
Kentucky
don't
Fried
think,
Chicken.
but I'm not sure what they knew what they wanted to do with it. That was the part I have the problem with.
All right. When Angie disappears and she is not where Jake was going to pick her up after she had car trouble, Grandpa goes into action, searching the grounds where she was supposed to be, finding her phone and sniffing gasoline and manure in the air. He smells that. And Jake, of course, thinks, man, he's crazy. Grandpa has some skills, though, and they show here. Or do they? you know,
We don't
we don't know.
exactly, we don't know. Is this who got, just crazy guy, or is there
Yeah.
something really going on?
Yeah, so he snoops around, theoretically
Oh,
finding,
wait, Dan, though, wait a second. We know the title is Undercover Grandpa. So chances are he has some background in this stuff.
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, he was in a special ops group, we know for sure, but they think he's gone nuts, right? That's why he's in this old people's home kind of thing. All right, he slips around, theoretically finding more evidence, like bullet casings, and he goes to an arms dealer that he happens to know where they are to get these bullets checked out. That's a funny scene. He shows
Well,
up.
I think the funny part to me with that is that he knew where to go.
Yeah, right, there you go. He
Because
knew exactly where to go.
if he's been locked up in this place where this old people with memory issues home,
Yeah.
how's he gonna know where this guy
Boom.
is?
Goes right there. And they're tough with him. They're like, hey, throw this old crazy guy out. Because they didn't know him. He didn't know these guys actually, but he knew where they were. But he kind of shows he's a kind of a tough guy here, taking down the gorilla. Unlikely. The scene, yeah, sure. But boom. Some fun stuff happens there. And Grandpa is very suspicious that something bad has happened to Angie. So Grandpa, with Jake, goes to a friend and an old associate, Maddie Harcourt, who was a bigwig at the Aspic headquarters. She spins more BS about Grandpa being mentally incompetent to Jake and
Yeah,
everything.
wait,
And
I gotta jump in here because you said the Aspic headquarters.
oh
Now,
yeah.
I mean, at least in the US, aspic is something that is associated with times gone by. Something old people might like. Again, there's a big old people theme here because nothing says old people more than a meat-based gelatin, which is what aspic is. So I just think that the acronym for that, I actually thought I got a chuckle out of that one, Dan. There was something in this movie that made me laugh.
Yeah, okay. Hey, look at that. You're laughing already, and this is early in the movie. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, especially since it is a gelatin, which is jiggly like jello, which is a perfect match for a bunch of these old people, not in tip-top shape like they were when they were young and executing these missions, but more gelatiny. So that it is an actually perfect name. So that's a
Dan,
good
we're
thing you
getting
pointed it
awful
out.
close to some of these ages. We better be careful there.
Grandpa can't get any help from the government officials, Aspic, or anywhere, apparently. So he has to put his group together. Aspic, led by Maddie Harcourt, as we mentioned, just says Grandpa is crazy, mentally incompetent. Boom. So they dismiss the whole thing. They're not going to help at all. And so they refuse completely to help him. And actually, I thought they seemed to be working against him. And of course, you have the theoretical bad guys. Is this like a classic double pursuit kind of case? Bad guys after him, good guys too. I don't know.
See, I don't think it is, right? Because I mean, I thought Maddie Harcourt played this well. I mean, I don't want
Yeah,
to really give away what happens here, but with the way the movie evolves and the way the movie ends,
yeah.
this isn't a double pursuit.
Eh,
Maddie sets Grandpa up to
well,
do
we
what
think.
happens in this movie.
Yeah. Well, I see where you're going here, but for a viewer watching this for the first time, this seems like a double pursuit to me. Anyway, because we can't say anymore here because or we can't say anymore here, but maybe is it maybe just a double pursuit? It might be a double pursuit. I don't know. At least keep this in mind while watching. It's an intriguing spy movie with a classic movie theme. Now, Tom doesn't think it's so intriguing. I think it's kind
No,
of fun.
no.
Anyway, anyway, we're always in the dark as to what is the truth about Grandpa. And just when we think we have it figured out, another twist is thrown into the works. I like that aspect, not aspic, but
Oh,
aspect.
jeez.
Lots of other spy movies keep us in the dark as to whose side who is on. And that's a standard. So this movie employs the same storytelling techniques. So I think that was cool. All
Yeah,
right.
okay. So let's get into Angie and what happens here a
Yeah,
little bit. All right.
Angie's important.
Yeah, because this is the girlfriend, right? She's actually captured. We get a summary shot of what may have happened. Two people are shot, and Angie is taken because she saw what happened with the Russian attackers.
Yeah.
And they may be planning to use Angie to get out of the country. This is a real stretch, but this is
Hey,
fiction, as you say, Dan. They can do anything they want in fiction.
yeah.
Now,
Just write it.
one other thing I think is kind of interesting is the actress who played Angie was born in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Ah,
So the Russian attackers coming after her, kind of a nice
okay.
little twist there.
That's kind of cool.
All right. Now, in most spy movies, someone or something has been captured, stolen, or kidnapped, or
Yeah.
otherwise taken. Usually it ends up in the form of a MacGuffin. But in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
case, Angie's more than a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Right? So whether it's a person, a knock list, atomic weapons, whatever.
Yeah. Something.
Yeah, but here we see that the central plot involves rescuing the protagonist's love interest, which is a common theme in spy movies, such
Yeah.
as Taken and many of the James Bond movies as well.
Yeah. A lot of.
So, okay, pretty common theme.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in the very beginning of this movie, we see a news report on television about some Russian guy, Komenko, and other Russians, Krakowians. And we don't pay much attention. It's on TV while the kid's getting ready to go to school, right? We told you he's going to go to school on a skateboard. So we should pay attention here at the very beginning because this is like central to the story.
Well, actually, if you're watching a movie and at the beginning of the movie they're showing news footage, pay attention.
Pay attention. Yeah.
It's probably going to be important.
All right. Angie's captured, as we said. I have to say, she shows some chops while captured and manages a 911 call. And that now is something that Grandpa wants to track down. So, of course, Jake has a computer geek friend, Wendell, as we mentioned. Wendell's good enough to hack the 911 system with some help. Wendell is a young high school classmate of Jake's. He can't hack in until he gets the help of an old guy and old computer equipment. Well,
Watch
Grandpa
how you say
knows
the
a guy.
word old, Dan.
Grandpa knows a guy.
He knows a guy. Hey, I know a guy.
I know a guy, Harry, who has just what Wendell needs.
Of course.
I don't know about you, but when we first see Harry, played by Kenneth Welsh, which He's terrific in this. It seems a lot like Doc Brown in Back to the Future to me.
Oh, I totally got that. As soon
Yeah,
as
yeah,
I saw him, he has that white lab coat on and his
yeah,
white
yeah,
hair and stuff.
yeah.
It's like, oh, he's channeling Doc Brown.
Yeah, that was a little knockoff there, I think. Harry has this huge computer room with lots of old technology, like a UNIVAC mainframe computer bank and other stuff. I mean, Harry's a character and a good one, played great by Ken Welsh. This guy, Harry, we learn, is Grandpa's first ops guy of the Devil's Scum that we're going to visit, Harry Niederlander. He's a computer wizard. UNIVAC? Wow. All right.
Well, and
Can it?
I love seeing the old computer equipment, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He can break into government systems. Yeah, he could. The Devil's Scum is something Grandpa says was his old unit when he was in intelligence operations in his special ops group. Really? Or is that part of his delirium? Yikes. We don't know. Is he? Well, we'll see.
This movie does not make me delirious, I'll tell you that.
Well, he helps, and Wendell can now trace the location of the 911 call by Angie. Okay, that's pretty damn handy.
Yeah, now we have seen elite forces assembled in other movies, actually in many other movies.
Yes, we have.
Now we just have to put on your willing suspension of disbelief for a second here. I mean, we see the elite teams in movies like Mission Impossible and The Expendables, the Ocean series, and many
yeah,
others, right?
Yeah, forever.
But here, we're putting the band back together, and it's a band that hadn't done anything for a while.
Yeah. All right. It's a trope that's been used, is the point. And you're going to see a lot of that in this movie. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Okay. All right. He goes to the next Devil's Scum, a paratrooper and climbing and wiring expert called Mother.
Now that's Louis Gossett Jr., right? I mean,
he was terrific. I thought he was terrific. Yeah. All right. On to the next Devil's Scum, Wolf, tactical and explosives expert.
and that was Lawrence Dane.
Yeah. Excellent. Next Devil's Scum, Giovanni, weapons and camouflage expert. Camouflage is important here because he uses quite a camouflage outfit, the tree. And he's got weapons of all kinds in his little lab. He's like a Q lab.
Yep, absolutely. Now Giovanni,
he's cool.
Yeah, and Giovanni is played by Paul Sorvino, and I really like Paul Sorvino.
There you go.
This is the first movie that I've seen him in that I didn't think he chose well, right? Accepting the part, right? Because for me, this was a rare miss for a Sorvino movie. Because usually, if he's in it, I like the movie. I thought he was very good in this because I always think he's very good.
Okay, that's it.
I just think the movie wasn't.
Yeah, he's very good in it, and that helps make the movie a nice watch. All right, the plan is cool as they build this map. I love that. This part is cool, right? They're building this map
Of the area they have to infiltrate, yeah.
Of the area that they got to go, because they trace the call, right?
Yeah.
Now they got to go to this area, and they're building this map.
And I think I really like this map, the way they did it. They bring in some 3D stuff. And yeah, okay, I'm liking seconds of this movie, Dan.
That's all you got to do. Here's all you got to do. Seconds added into minutes, minutes into hours.
But I thought the way they laid out that map, it's like in the Mission Impossible series. So like take Mission Impossible 2, when Sean Ambrose is describing and saying, here's how Ethan Hunt's going to get in. And he kind of talks through, and they show Ethan Hunt performing those stunts or whatever to get into the building and how he's going to do it, as Ambrose is talking about it. Here, they're talking about the place they're going to infiltrate, and they're showing it on the map that here's where we've got to go, here's where we've got to go. I thought that was pretty nice.
All right, good. That's great. All right. And now there's some turmoil, of course, as they're putting the group together here, because these guys are old.
Yeah, no, I think this was excessively overplayed. I mean,
well, it's pretty obvious on screen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you don't get that one, you didn't get the sledgehammer they hit you over the head with. I mean, Undercover Grandpa came out in the same year as Going in Style.
Yeah.
And that was another movie about old guys trying to, in this case, rob something. And that one starred Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin.
Terrific.
And that one wasn't a spy movie, but I thought it did a much less cringeworthy portrayal of a group of old guys trying to get something done. I think they way overplayed that in this movie.
They overplayed it for a reason, though, because they're all a little crazy, right? They're all we don't know if Grandpa's really crazy yet, and we see each of these wacky guys, and they each seem a little crazy. So I
think early on you
there's
get
a
the
reason for it.
I think early on you get the Grandpa isn't really crazy. Once he does his snooping and investigates and is kind of validating
but
what
you get little snippets like the bullets. Oh, he carries those around. He's been carrying around stuff for 30 years because
but
he's
everything he was doing was proved to be right.
I know, but you still have to have doubt. If you don't have a little doubt there, I think you saw too many spy movies, maybe.
Okay, now another thing that happens here. You've got this group. They're assembling this group, right? They're putting the band back together.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of the guys kind of chickens out and he's like, yeah, I'm just too old to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And the rest of them kind of back out, right?
Yeah.
So Jake has to give a speech to try to keep them from quitting. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a okay speech.
Wait, that's it? This is the devil scum I've heard so much about? The men who assassinated Hitler, who fronted the Tet Offensive, that's it? You know what, just go. Leave. Look, my generation, we have no idea how good we have it. Okay, we text on our smartphones, we update our statuses on Facebook, we listen to our music in the cloud, all without realizing that this world is a safer place because of men like you.
But if you go back, look at Blutarsky's speech in National Lampoon's Animal House.
That's a great speech.
About when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. What was it?
Didn't we give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, exactly. Germans, forget it. He's on a roll, right? I thought Blutarsky's speech was much better, and it had humor in it that there's no humor in what Jake's doing here because he's trying to get these guys back together.
There is no humor. I admit there's no humor. Yeah. And his talk with them, I think, is one of the weakest parts of this movie.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden,
that's saying something.
This shy kid is assertive. And to me, that was a big stretch. He was too shy to ask Angie for a date, but here he's convincing a bunch of ex-special ops guys to join the fight.
But you got to remember, he's thinking not with his little head. Or no, he's not thinking with his big head, right? I mean, he's got to save his girlfriend, and I'm going to do what I got to do to save my girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was the right thing to do at the time because these guys were kind of backing out, but it was rather uninspiring speech, or maybe better, really, not well delivered speech by this young kid, Jake, or maybe just poorly acted by Dylan Everett, the actor who played Jake. So it wasn't a great moment in the movie. All right.
Okay, because there were so many.
Oh, yeah. The old people should be seen and not heard line comes up again here in his talk. And we remember that. We said that earlier when he was talking about his teacher in the classroom, right? Then Giovanni, as we said, we like this character played by Paul Sorvino. He says,
"What do you say, boys? Chance to go out on our shields."
Okay, I like that line. And you can see an old ex-special ops guy saying that in this particular situation. I'm thinking, okay, that's not bad. I like the line. That was good. Okay. There are plenty of cool and why? What do you laugh?
I don't have the fascination with that line you do.
Okay. There are plenty of cool and amusing moments as the group initiates their plan.
Wait. There were? I mean, which moment specifically, Dan? I mean, I've watched this thing now 3 or 4 times in the last week, and I don't recall seeing any cool and amusing moments.
Any? Oh, come on, Tom. You already liked the 3D map they were making of the assault plan.
I don't think that was a cool and amusing moment.
Yeah, it was. I thought the sets here were pretty darn good for each of the Devil Scum's locations. Come on, those were fantastic.
The sets were fine. I'm fine with the sets.
And you can see the excitement and simultaneous hesitation in each of these Devil Scum's expressions and their thinking here, which I think comes across very clearly. And each of these guys was good in their role. Yeah,
well, like I said, you even with Maggie, right? I mean, Jessica Walter.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
The older actors in this movie are fantastic, accomplished actors, and do a good job acting their roles. They always have.
Yeah. Now, Yeah, we've seen all of this before, as we said, and we'll highlight places where we have even more. But still, I think there's enough aspect jiggly jelly here to enjoy.
Oh my gosh, you really said that, Dan.
Not easily.
All right, anyways, we do get to see to a degree the use of some, and I'll put in quotes, gadgets, which is in just about every spy movie now.
Yeah.
And now the gadgets weren't as advanced as a Bond gadget
No.
or a Mission Impossible gadget. I mean, the budget wasn't anywhere close to this, I'm sure. I mean, the
Yeah.
movie does include use of tools and strategies by Grandpa and his team, some which I think you think are amusing, Dan.
Yeah, thank
Now-
you. Thank you, Tom. And
now-
come on.
There was one line in this movie that I did like,
Hey.
but
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
okay, we've heard it before. Wendell at one point says,
We can't fight the Krakowians. We've got midterms next week.
okay, now, if you remember the movie Risky Business,
Well, I
Miles has one of my favorite lines in any movie.
I don't believe this. I've got a trig midterm tomorrow and I'm being chased by Guido, the killer pimp.
I mean, this line by Wendell is almost the same line. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's the
Yeah,
same theme there.
Okay.
And it was much funnier in Risky Business. Not,
Yeah, but it's amusing here. You highlighted it. You highlighted it.
I highlighted it because it's one line I liked. It made me think of the other one. I just wish it had been delivered. I don't know. The setup wasn't quite the same.
What it made me think of is, who the heck are the Krakowians? Because it's like, so I'm trying to find, are there really Krakowians anywhere in the world? But there was a Polish group associated with Krakow, Poland, that were called the Krakowians, and Krakow was under Russian control until 1794. But I have no idea what they're talking about here. Do you? I couldn't figure that out.
No, there's not enough to figure out. I didn't want to spend any time thinking about things like that.
Oh man. All right, another spy trope, of course, is them using disguises to a degree to perform their mission. Okay, that's no big deal, right?
Yeah,
I love one
these-
disguise, the tree.
The
The
tree
tree
was a bizarre disguise.
but there are some funny moments. Come on. All right, then they go into the execution of their mission. This is where it all happens. And I think there are a few moments of fun. For example, we see another piton being used. Yeah, but these guys have a piton gun, which makes absolute sense. Not some piton belt that shoots 75 feet of wire, which is impossible, like in the James Bond movies. These guys actually had a piton gun. They knew what they were doing. And I love the tree bit. It's ridiculous, but I thought it was amusing. It reminded me of the Ents in The Hobbit and the 1940s underwater diving suit and helmet bit. I thought that was funny, especially combined with the walker. I mean, come on.
The
Underwater.
underwater.
The walker underwater.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Wrapped in cellophane.
Yes, because he didn't want it to melt. I
I'm
guess.
still laughing. See, it's worth it just for that. All right.
Well, you did laugh at that.
And I thought during the mission, they built what I call amusing tension, not the kind of tension where you're fearing for their lives or the lives of anybody in the movie, actually, but amusing tension, like old guys trying to do young guy stuff, which I know you think was pushed way beyond the limit there, Tom. But
Yes.
I like this fake amusing tension. The movie needed it as a comedy, and it's amusing in parts. Not all of it, but in parts.
One thing that I thought was kind of cool the way they did it. And I'm saying something positive here, Dan. Is in this movie, in this part when the mission part happens, there's a lot of gunfire, although you never see anybody get hit. There's punching, hitting over the head with things.
Yeah.
The kids that are involved, right? They get involved in this. The only weapon you see brandished that's not something that's being thrown is a knife. And Angie stabs somebody in the foot. And that's it.
Yeah.
So you don't see the teenagers firing guns. So I thought that was
No, they
good
didn't
that
fire any guns.
That it was good that they didn't do that. Now I don't know if you have a kid firing a gun, it automatically doesn't let it be a PG-13
Right,
or whatever this was. But
Yeah, they throw a few things.
yeah, there's some violence, but it's not weapon-based violence really. This thing
No.
did have a PG-13, and I wonder if that helped them stick to that.
You do see some people lying on the ground after some of the electrical elements that were initiated at the end of the movie, but That's okay. All right. Hey, we want to give a few shout outs here because we haven't done it yet. Thanks to some of our listeners who gave us feedback on our recent episode. So big shout out to Morgan Lisney and Cloud Macbeth _Jane.Seymour.Caan, who both gave us feedback on our Salute to George Lazenby episode. And then a shout out to Pietro Rossi and Jim Phelps, who gave us feedback on our recent Gadgets podcasts on the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Keep it coming.
All right, so Dan, let's go ahead and look at some pros and some cons based on various
Look, you're saying this, Tom.
Well,
This
I
is
said
good.
pros like questioningly, right? And now one pro I've already mentioned is the cast. Right? I mean,
There.
you put this cast together. That's a good cast, and it's
That's a good
very well acted. Right?
Yeah.
They had no script to work with, but it was very well acted. And James Caan was really, really good in his performance. I mean, he always is. So he played this character well.
Yeah.
And for me, though, Jessica Walter and Kenneth Welsh steal the movie.
Yeah.
Because
You
I just think I don't know what it was more well written, or it was just the part, or just they did a better job with them. I'm not sure.
I think they did a great job. Personally, I think James Caan was really, really good in his performance and added to the viewability of this movie without doubt. And I think just for his performance, this movie is worth watching for James Caan's performance. I thought he was great. He was great with every little thing he did, whether it was turning his eyes, anything he delivered, any line he delivered, his thoughtfulness in delivering the lines, body movement, facial expressions. He was just great, just terrific.
Well, and I hope that the actors who played the teenagers, I mean, you're working with that skilled cast. I hope they learn something watching these people perform, right? I mean, and how they work.
Yeah.
So the cast was good, Dan.
Yeah, there you go. Now, you mentioned writing. It was written by Jeff Schechter, and the director here was Eric Knull. Now, he directed Bon Cop, Bad Cop in 2006. He directed Barrymore in 2011, Hemingway, A Portrait in 1999. So he's done some good stuff. And the cinematographer here, we mentioned some of the room sets and everything else, and some of the camera angles were fantastic, I thought, was Pierre Gill. And he did Dune, Prophecy for TV, and Polytechnique in 2009 also. So yeah, I think they did some cool stuff.
All right, Dan, is there another pro?
Yeah, there's another pro.
Okay, what is it?
Humor and absurdity. There are several instances.
That's a pro?
There are several instances, I think, in which absurd situations are created, and there's an attempt at humor in these situations.
Yeah, okay. There may have been attempts, but for me, mostly there were failed attempts.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes they weren't, but it's like this in every movie, right? Some flop, some are better. After all, I mean, it's an action comedy movie, so we got to expect some humor to hit the target, and then some will miss the target, and some here by a wide margin. But hey, so what? This is how comedy is for the most part. Some will find a particular situation funny, and another will not. Some viewers found the absurd situations and the humor here involving this older cast of characters to be very entertaining. And I thought it was entertaining enough to watch. So there you go.
Now, Dan, maybe it's because you and I are closer to the scum team's age than the teens. I didn't really find the old guy humor all that funny. I mean, it seemed really tired with how they did it, and they overdid it, as I think.
Yeah, I know you thought that. Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, if you want to see a better movie of doing that old guy humor, I think Going in Style is the one to watch. It's not a spy movie, but I really think that's where I would go, because I got tired of this old guy humor very quickly.
I know you did. I thought once you accept it, you're okay, and I was okay with it. All right, it's been done before. We know all that, but I thought there was enough moments here to make it fun. All right, let's look at another pro, Tom. Yeah, there's another pro.
Really?
Nostalgia. The nostalgia this movie brings in, right? For fans of veteran actors, and there's a lot of fans of these actors, seeing a group of them together in a situation can be nostalgic and satisfying. So there you go. I think that's good.
I'll agree to part of this, right? I mean, because like I said, I like almost anything Paul Sorvino does. And it was good to see him in another movie.
All right, let's look at another pro, Tom. I mean, we're overwhelming you with pros, I know. But there'll be a con or two. Action sequences. In a spy movie, we expect to see some action sequences. So regardless of the comedic tone of this entire movie, the movie includes some engaging action scenes that we welcome. And that actually kept the plot moving along, and I think in a satisfying way. We see this in a lot of spy movies, of course, the Bond movies for sure, not so much in the really serious ones like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold or 3 Days of the Condor or Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but here they mix it up with more attempts at comedy.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
saying attempts, I know.
I'm not even going to say anything about the comedy part. I'm just going to say I thought most of these, what you're calling action scenes, were done to highlight how old these guys were.
That's okay. They were old.
And not really for the action itself. I mean, the fighting was pretty lame.
Yeah, it
And
had to
part
be
of that
lame.
was
They're
because
old.
because they're trying to build up this old guy theme, but it was
That's
kind
the
of like,
theme.
okay, if you're fighting that lame, how are you kicking somebody's butt?
Well, you have to have that willing suspension of disbelief. There you go. All right, let's look at another pro, and this may be the last pro.
Another pro? Wow.
Yeah, there were some heartwarming moments here, right? We do see some heartwarming elements in this movie that we welcome. For example, the ever-changing relationship between Jake and his grandfather, that adds a little touching twist to the story, which, while emphasizing the themes of family, which I loved, sacrifice for family, and downright bravery. Those are good things. There are also some nice moments between Grandpa Lou and another pivotal character in the movie, Maddie Harcourt, played by, as we mentioned, Jessica Walter. Man, these moments in the movie are, I think, welcomed, and they're delivered well here.
Okay, Dan, I can finally agree with you on one of your pros about this movie.
Wow.
Right? There are some heartwarming moments, although I'm going to turn one heartwarming moment into a con in that I thought the way the movie, again, I don't want to give away the ending, but the way the movie ends in the last 5 minutes of it, I think they blew it. I got exactly what they were trying to do. But unfortunately, I got exactly what they were trying to do 5 minutes before they started trying to do it.
All right. Yeah, let's wrap this up with a couple of cons.
Okay. You knew it was going to happen. Right. And that's con number one. It was a predictable plot. Is this thing an original plot? No.
No.
I mean, we've seen this thing many times before, which makes it nothing but a predictable cookie cutter, therefore not a very original movie. We got a bunch of old guys banding together to go out on a risky mission to save James Caan's grandson's girlfriend. You know, old guys coming back together for a mission. Done before? Yeah. And again, there are some movies that have this kind of theme. I already mentioned the Going in Style from the same year. If you're going to choose between the two, I'd watch Going in Style. Las Vegas in 2013 was De Niro, Douglas, and Kevin Kline.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and then Red in 2010 was Bruce Willis, Helen Mirren, Morgan Freeman, and John Malkovich. Tough to beat that cast.
Yeah, and there's more. There's more. I mean, there's a lot. The Expendables, Space Cowboys, the Wild Geese, Stand-Up Guys. I mean, they all did it, and all did it before this, except the one that came out in 2017, same time, Going in Style. So it's been done before. So you're not going to get a new story here. It's a different twist on old stories. But all those other movies did the same thing too. So there you go. All right. So the concept of Undercover Grandpa has been done before. And so you have some different gags in this one. Let's get to another con. It did have mixed reviews on the humor, Tom. Not all of them thought it was as funny as you did.
Oh, God.
We mentioned the humor. I smiled a few times here and there, mostly because Caan's so darn good. Others think there really isn't much good humor in this action comedy.
Yeah, Dan, there is no ice cream served. I'm sorry, I had to use one of your jokes, right?
Oh,
no good humor, right? Now, there isn't much good humor in here. Plus, if you look at when you talk about audience reaction, on Rotten Tomatoes, Undercover Grandpa gets a 28% on the popcorn meter. That is terrible. Right? That used to be called the audience score. I mean,
millions of people can be wrong.
I think a lot of people agreed with me, Dan, instead of you.
Millions of people can be wrong. But, I will say there are a few scenes that create a ridiculous situation because of the age of these guys trying to do this mission. I like the one guy disguised as a tree, and I love the underwater bit with the old 1940s underwater helmet and garment and gear with the walker. Just I take it. Hey, that's funny stuff. All right, let's let the third criticism here, and this is a critique of the concept. The premise of the film is out there, and some have thought, wow, this cast is too good for this premise and the execution of the movie. Like Tom thinks that.
Yes.
In a sense, this is true. However, if it makes you smile once in a while and it flows rather nicely, then what the heck? You can enjoy this farcical comedy. I thought it flowed pretty well, and all the characters got established up front. So that was good.
This is a con I don't agree with.
What do you mean?
Because I actually think the concept was sound.
Wow.
Right? Having an undercover old guy can work. And the grandson not knowing about it is quite plausible and probable.
Okay, yeah.
It was the execution and the script that was lacking. The high level concept of here, we've got an old grandpa who's a spy and they got to put the band back together. The concept works because we've seen it before.
Yeah.
It's just they didn't execute it
lot.
right. They just didn't execute it right.
All right. So I think we're probably of the opinion that Undercover Grandpa isn't going to jump to the top of anyone's action comedy spy movie list at all. But it's 1 hour and 39 minutes long. You can enjoy this movie, and it can be an entertaining watch if you like the cast and are ready for a very light, somewhat predictable spy movie comedy.
Somewhat predictable.
All right, it's time for the answer to the trivia question. Tom?
Okay, so again, the question was, which one of the older actors in Undercover Grandpa played a recurring role in the animated TV spy series Archer? And I'll give you some hints here. Was it Paul Sorvino? Was it James Caan? Was it Kenneth Welsh? Or was it Jessica Walter? One of those four is the answer to this question. So what was the answer? Do you have it? The answer is Jessica Walter. And she played Mallory Archer in 127 episodes of that series.
Wow.
Hope you got that one. And we'll do that in every episode. We'll give you another trivia question.
All right. That's a wrap. This has been Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our podcast show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Subscribe to our show and our YouTube channel as well. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.